the spoken word. The English writer Edward Bulwer Lytton said, "The pen is mightier than the sword." The writer of Proverbs said it like this: "Life and death is in the power of the tongue." Human language, whether written or oral, is the vehicle through which most cultural, social, philosophical, and spiritual change occurs. In the creation story itself, in the book of Genesis of the Bible, it opens with the expression, verbal expression of God, "Let there be," from which all life came forth. Language has been the medium from which effective action has been inspired throughout man's illustrative history. Verbal and written communication have been the primary tools for effective change in every age. In ancient Greece, the earliest mention of oratorical skill occurs in Homer's Iliad, where heroes like Achilles and Hector and Odysseus were honored for their ability to advise and exhort their peers and followers in wise and appropriate action. Through Greek rhetoric, it is possible to analyze the lives of great men and the way that they communicated in affecting positive change upon those who followed, in order to determine how best to lead as well as communicate to those that are led. In Greek schools of thought, there were three primary categories that defined effective oral presentation. In Logos, we see a logical appeal for persuading through reason, to elevate the perspective of the audience. In Ethos, we find a form of ethical appeal that attempts to persuade through the credibility of the author, as well as appealing to the credibility of the information that's being presented. Through Pathos, persuasion is made by appealing to human spirit or emotion of the audience. There are myriad men and women throughout time who have stood upon history's stage, worthy of commendation for their ability to lead through written and oral communication. There are a few who stand out that were created almost as the voice of a generation, whose life and breadth of calling transcend age, dispensation, and era. The man Moses effectively led a revolt from Egypt, established a law and order, and gave the people new identity through the transfer of the Ten Commandments from the mouth of God to the ear of several million transient Jews. Christ, in his Sermon on the Mount, transitioned the nation of Israel from one dispensation to another, and taught every generation that would follow to have a transcendent, principled perspective. The Apostle Paul, through the principles taught in the epistles of the New Testament of the Bible, effectively tied together the Old and New Testament, ushering in a new age of biblical understanding and spiritual maturity. Abraham Lincoln's presidency was highlighted by the Gettysburg Address, which showed a nation how to move forward from civil war that was the result of a nation in a crucial identity crisis. That nation would rise up from the ashes of that war to become one of the greatest nations in human history. Dr. Martin Luther King, as a result of divisive ideology that was the byproduct of bigotry and racism, led a movement to uphold the Constitution and establish the principle that all men are created equal. The United States of America was at a crucial juncture of her short but illustrious history. One man and one speech turned the tide of a nation and inspired millions to fight against evil and bigotry in the face of grave resistance. Biblical as well as historical figures like Moses and Jesus and Paul and Aristotle, Winston Churchill, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., many of whom we know by first name alone, as well as many more, have left their mark upon history. In every generation, there are men and women who rise up in conflict, turmoil, and civic unrest to change the course of human history. Through careful analysis, we can observe how their words and lives were logically sound, gave humanity someone and something to trust, and elicited hope that things would not always remain in their broken state. Their words, fit and choicely spoken, elevated principles, encouraged hope, and inspired action that changed the world for future generations. Thank you.